Hello, and welcome to episode 28 of the Brain Cancer Podcast. Before we get going today, I do want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to tune in and listen to the show. It really does mean a lot to me. I get a lot from it just by sitting here talking to you all. I know that I am also helping other people out there, and that's the whole point of doing the show. In this episode, actually, I want to talk about something that quite honestly surprised me that I haven't talked about before. I went back and double checked all of the episodes that I had posted just to make sure, simply because this is something that we all go through, we have gone through, we will continue to go through. And I'm not talking about a brain cancer diagnosis, which we are all in the same boat there. I'm talking about an MRI. I have no idea how I had never made an episode on MRIs. So that's what we're going to do today. I guess we should start off by explaining what an MRI actually is. It is magnetic resonance imaging, and essentially it uses strong magnetic fields and radio waves to induce a current to generate the images of the organs in the body. Essentially, we're just looking at our brains here because you can use MRIs for every other part of your body because they give such a clear image. What they are essentially doing is they use strong magnetic fields to align the water in your body to essentially make them all face one direction, and then it takes a snapshot of it. And then it stops, goes to a little bit different radio frequency, does the same thing, and it will do that across both the X and the Y coordinates of our brain. So that's how we can get that image when we scroll through it on our own PC or when we're at the doctor's office. You get the image that starts all the way at the beginning, and it will come all the way to the end, and it gives you a complete and clear map of our brains. There's a whole lot more physics and medical terminology involved beyond what I can really cover in an episode. But to break it down, it just uses strong magnetic fields and very slight radio waves, which are picked up by antennas, which are inside of the machine. And then it amplifies those signals and transforms them into the pictures that we see. It's really, really cool technology. And it has made diagnosing not just brain diseases, but broken bones and hundreds, if not thousands, of other injuries or diseases. MRIs are especially useful for any sort of brain injury or disease because they give such a clear image, and they don't use any form of radiation like a CT scan or a PET scan. There's no ionizing radiation used. For anybody who has never had an MRI before, it can be a little bit frightening. I was completely terrified of just getting an IV put in so that you can get contrast, which we will talk about in a little bit. And MRI itself is completely painless. If you have a good phlebotomist too, or somebody that can put in your IV without you even feeling it, then you're golden. Generally, for a lot of people, the uncomfortable feelings from an MRI come simply from both the confining nature of an MRI machine, as well as all of the noise that comes with being in the MRI machine. I've had MRIs in both traditional old-style tube machines. MGH has open-style machines, which are a huge improvement over being stuck in the traditional tubes. There's far less of a feeling of claustrophobia if you have that. Noise is actually far less, and many of the new open-style machines are more efficient, and they have entertainment options where you can listen to your own music, or they have a nature scene that you can watch and it moves, whether it's the mountains or a lake or a river or whatever it might be. I just close my eyes and I know all of the noises and I can just kind of doze off now, which is actually pretty good. My MRIs usually last about 30 minutes, and that is almost always with contrast. A lot of the MRIs for our brain cancers will be used with contrast and without contrast. The point for using contrast is it helps enhance the images and you get a much clearer and better picture. And it will also show a more significant enhancement or color change on the images themselves. The typical one that they used is gadolinium, and it's some sort of varied version of gadolinium that is safe for people. I do know some people who are allergic to it, so if you have any sort of allergy to it, you have to let them know as soon as possible. I haven't done a whole lot of research on gadolinium yet, although I do know some people are certainly not fans of it. It is generally accepted as safe for medical use. I personally will be doing a little bit more reading on it just because I'm really curious. The tube style machines are a bit older, or they still do make them, but they're far less comfortable than the open style machines. You do get pushed into the tube, and it can be very claustrophobic if you have an issue like that. They also tend to be much louder, whereas the new open style machines, which I will post a link to what they look like at the MGH Imaging Center in Chelsea for outpatient therapy, it is far more comfortable. You still have to go in a fair bit, but your arms are just lying there. You still get the mask to make sure your head doesn't move, but they put padding on the sides of it, as well as you put your earplugs in. These machines are far less noisy than the older style machines. Somewhat coincidentally, I was actually the first patient to go through their newest open style MRI just because I happened to have an appointment scheduled for that same morning. So it just worked out coincidentally that I got to be the first run. Hopefully nothing bad would happen, and nothing bad happened. Typically for me, I'll get a call a few days before when I'm supposed to be there. My MRIs are almost always on Wednesdays, and then I see my doctor on Friday to get the results. They'll usually call me on Sunday or Monday, and they will ask you a list of questions such as, do you have any metal in your body? What kind of surgeries have you had? Are you on any sort of dialysis? Do you have kidney disease, lupus, myeloma? They will also ask if you have claustrophobia, trouble standing up, sitting up, walking by yourself, if you'll be taking any sort of sedatives to help with any sort of anxiety for the scan, and definitely a few other questions that I am forgetting because none of them apply to me, but they may apply to you, so pay attention. I will have, for example, a 1 o'clock arrival for a 1:30 scan. I arrive at 1 o'clock, check in, wait for them to call me back, and then I go back and I get changed. For me personally, I just leave my t-shirt on. All I do is change out of my jeans into the one size fits none hospital pants and one of those gown thingies. And then I just wait to be called back for my IV. I always talk with the woman who always does it for me, and she does a wonderful job. She's so nice. We talk for a little bit. Sometimes they're ready to take me right back in. Sometimes I have to wait for 5 minutes until they have the room ready. They might wand you down just to make sure that you don't have any metal in you. Sit on the table. I kind of know where to start so that I can just lie back and my head is already pretty much in the right position. But you'll get your head positioned. They'll give you your earplugs to put in. They'll get the mask put over your your head to make sure that it doesn't move. They'll put the padding on your ears to make sure that a lot of the noise doesn't bother you. Most times they will ask you if you also want a warm blanket, which I usually do because it can get a little cold in there because these things have to be cooled, usually via liquid hydrogen or something else that's really, really cold because these machines would get really hot otherwise. You'll get a little squeezy ball where if you feel uncomfortable at all or you need to come out, you just squeeze the ball and you can talk to the people in the other room and they can pull you out if you need to come out for a minute or two. Not a big deal. Once you're in there, though, it's pretty boring. I've heard the sounds so many times that I just know what they all are by now. So it's easier for me to just close my eyes and kind of doze off. They will tell you, like, Chris, your next scan will be 2 minutes. Next scan is 4 minutes. Then they'll say something like, oh, the next scan is 3 minutes. Then we'll come in, we'll give you your contrast. Once I get the contrast, I know I only have a couple scans left. And the final one is almost always like 7 or 8 minutes. And then that's it. In total, I think I'm about 30, somewhere between 28 and 32 minutes. And they pull you out, take off the head cage thing. You sit up, they take out your IV, put the bandage on there. I just leave it on until I get home because I have stuff to do afterwards anyways. So I just leave it on until I get home. Then you go get changed and you just leave. At least at the place I go, there's no checkout or anything. You just get changed and go. I always make sure to say goodbye to everybody, and especially the front desk people, because they're so nice. And I've been seeing them for so long. They always ask about how things are going, and I always make sure to talk to them for a little bit. And I just have to wait 2 days. I get it on Wednesday, and then I see my doctor on Friday. Perhaps I should make another episode on scanxiety. That was an earlier one that I did, and maybe it would be worth revisiting again. At this point, I don't get particularly bad scanxiety, and I still do the same thing like I had mentioned in that episode. I always head back over to Boston and hit up Boston Public Market for some vegan donuts. I get some fresh produce, some fresh fruits. It's the only time where I can justify spending way too much on a couple of vegan donuts, but they're so good. And I think that's something that you have to do. Have something to look forward to after the MRI because it helps reduce your scanxiety. And I like having a routine. It just gives me something to look forward to afterwards. And then I can just take my time and get the train back home whenever I'm ready. They may also elect to do an MRI with perfusion. What that means is there is like a separate box which will inject the contrast, and then they take images to map things in real time in your brain, such as the blood flow, blood volume, and how long it takes to spread around your brain. And this contrast with the perfusion will also highlight better any blood vessels that have formed inside of your tumor, as well as giving a good image of blood flow within your brain. I think I only get the perfusion MRI once a year. I think it's probably been over a year since I've actually had the last one, although I'm not totally sure. But that is something that they may also do at some point. It's just they don't come in to deliver the contrast. It's done via a machine that's by the MRI machine. I wanted to make this episode more so about my experiences with an MRI and what to expect when you go in for one. The machines will do the same task no matter where in the world you're at. Although some places might not have the newer open styles, they still serve the same purpose. For some people, claustrophobia can be the major hurdle. Even when they were still building the second open style machine at MGH Chelsea, there was a portable MRI on a trailer so that they could keep working with both machines while they were building the second open style machine. A few times they had asked me if I would go to the one on the trailer because they had another patient who was claustrophobic or had less ability to move as easily as I did. And I said, that's fine. I can do the tubes and it's not a big deal to me. I don't have claustrophobia. I can sit up and lie down fine. No problems. Thankfully now they have 2 open style machines and that isn't an issue anymore. Although they are less common, perhaps I should do another imaging episode all about CTs and PET scans, but that's something down the line. I wasn't sure how much to get into the technical side of what an MRI is, but I wanted to briefly talk about how all it does is it aligns the water molecules in our body along a magnetic field and then measures the radio waves that are emitted via doing that. Essentially, it is just mapping all of the water inside of our bodies. And as we all know, our bodies are mostly water. I really wanted to just talk about what it's like getting them. For me, it's just become a routine. The first couple, yeah, I was scared because I didn't really know what was going on. And the first couple that I had were actually at MGH main campus. Once I had gone to outpatient by starting my post-surgery treatment, I've had all of my scans at the Chelsea location. It works out perfect for me because I can get there really easily. It also works out perfectly because when I go back, I can do a few things before I get on the train and come home. The actual MRI is painless. There's nothing to it. It really is getting past some of the mental hurdles like the claustrophobia, the natural fear of needles, the scanxiety. Looking past that, though, the MRI gives you the best images of our brains. It is completely painless, no radiation involved. And when it comes to the results of an MRI, the best news is the boring news. We look forward to hearing things like stable, no changes, and no signs of any progression of disease. We want to have these boring scans because it means things are stable. When we do get the results back, take the time with your doctor to ask them about any questions you have on the images themselves. It can be a little bit overwhelming because you're just looking at this picture of your brain and there could be a tumor or tumors there and you don't know what parts are particularly dangerous. Your doctor is there to help you and they should take the time to go over your images with you. Ask as many questions as you need. And you can always ask for a CD to take the images home and put them on your computer to look at yourself. I know a lot of PCs don't actually have DVD drives nowadays, but you can pick up an external one for fairly cheap. That's what I did because I don't have one on my PC. So I just bought an external disc reader and I just use that for whatever I happen to need. I haven't actually picked up any recent MRI scans over the past few years. I do have quite a few from about the first 2 years. Obviously, a lot has changed since then, and I think I do want to get a more updated CD with my most recent scans on them. Also, getting them on a disc makes it easier if you wanted to get a second opinion, and getting a second opinion is never a bad thing. Most doctors would encourage you to do so. Some insurances require it, and any doctor that would be somehow offended by you asking for a second opinion is not willing to look beyond their own interpretation, and that's not good. I hope I did an okay job of just explaining how it is for me, what I go through, and what an MRI essentially is, to prepare for it, and to be prepared for the results. I didn't want to bog the episode down with technical talk because when we're diagnosed with brain cancer, we're not worried about the spin lattice of the electrons or the physics that's involved in actually taking the images and all of that stuff. I just wanted to talk about what it is and how it applies to us. I think that about does it for today. I want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to tune into the show. If you would like, please follow the page on Facebook at facebook.com/braincancerpodcast. Give it a follow on Twitter at braincancerpod. You can email me anytime at braincancerpodcast@gmail.com. If you would like to come on the show for an interview or tell your story, share your story, or do some sort of collaboration, please let me know. We can work that out. Never hesitate to reach out if you need anything at all. Finally, make sure to follow or subscribe to the podcast on whatever app or platform that you use, whether it's Spotify or Apple or Google or Podbean, whatever it might be. Just give it a follow if you would like. You don't have to, but it would be cool. Or leave a review. That's another good thing. I would really appreciate all of that. Once again, I want to say thank you so much. I will be back soon with another episode. I think the next one will be our April news update. And I definitely have a few stories that I want to talk about for the month of April. Until then, I hope you all have a great day or night, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.